Hi, I'm Deacon Dan Lowery. The bishop is still away, and I've been privileged to share this time with you. We're reflecting over the course of this week in the Beatitudes. Again, the Beatitudes, very appropriate to reflect on the Beatitudes in this first week of Ordinary Time in the new church year. It's very appropriate because it's during Ordinary Time that we reflect on Jesus' public mission. We listen to Jesus' words, his teachings, and we also attend very closely to his healings. And in the Synoptic Gospels, more so than anywhere else, that's where we see Jesus and we hear Jesus' teachings, his instruction. Today we're going to talk about the third Beatitude. Now, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the land. And again, we're looking at these Beatitudes through the perspective of the early church fathers. Three insights then from the early church fathers about this third beatitude. It talks about meekness. First insight: our contemporary understanding of meekness may not serve us well. We tend to think of meekness as someone who is meek as someone who is very shy, someone who is very humble, someone who does not assert himself. Theologians have pointed out that there are groups in our society, minorities in many instances. We could also talk about women, for whom meekness is what is not, as we understand it, is not what God is calling them to. So perhaps our understanding of meekness, our secular understanding, our contemporary understanding of meekness, may not serve us as well as it should. So the second insight, and this comes directly from the early church fathers, that's not how they understood meekness. They understood it as something very different. The early church fathers tended to think of meekness as radical openness to God's will for them. And to come to this understanding, they looked at the life of Jesus himself. Jesus was radically open to the Father's hopes and dreams for him. Yes, meekness in the sense that we set our own hopes and dreams aside. Meekness to the extent that we open ourselves to the will of another. This is a very different understanding of meekness than the one that our secular society gives to us. But this comes from the early church fathers, and I think there's a great deal of wisdom here. Because meekness, as the world understands it today, well, there were times when Jesus was not so very meek in the sense of that understanding of the term. But Jesus was always radically open to the hopes and dreams of the Father. Third insight from the early church fathers: much is promised to those who make themselves available to God's hopes and dreams. The meek will indeed inherit the land. The meek will indeed delight in great prosperity. Three insights from the early church fathers about our third beatitude: blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the land. Personal reflection questions? I would suggest three pertaining to this third beatitude. First, what do I believe that God wants for me at this particular point in my life? How do I know this? And how might I come to know it? What is God asking of me? Secondly, can God's hopes and dreams for me in this regard be expressed in terms of my praying? Can God's hopes and dreams for me be expressed in my serving? Can God's hopes and dreams for me be expressed in my sharing? So how can I express God's hopes and dreams in my life? And third, how responsive have I been? How responsive have I really been to God's hopes and dreams for me? Our third beatitude: blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the land. We'll see you next time.